All three couples from the last video just had their first child. Alex and Sam in New York, Priya and Chris in Texas, Jordan and Taylor in Denver. Same households, same jobs, same careful math that got each of them ahead. Here's the number that should scare you a little. Full-time infant daycare in New York City can run $2,400 a month. That's more than some mortgage. Everyone assumes a kid just adds a fixed cost and everything else stays the same. It doesn't. Kids interact with taxes, with housing, with which parent works, in ways almost nobody models out in advance. I'm Kevin. This is Prosperity Levels. Today, exactly what a first child does to all three households' numbers. Using this year's actual child tax credit, dependent care benefits, and real child care costs by city. Quick note, not a financial advisor. This is educational. Talk to a professional for your specific situation. Let's meet the new additions. Before we touch child care costs, there are three separate tax benefits a child unlocks, and almost nobody uses all three correctly. First, the child tax credit. $2,200 per qualifying child under 17 for 2026. This isn't a deduction. It comes directly off your tax bill, dollar for dollar. All three of our households qualify for the full amount, since none of them come close to the income phase-out thresholds. That's $2,200 straight off each family's federal tax bill, automatically. Second, the Dependent Care FSA. As of 2026, thanks to a recent law change, the limit jumped from $5,000 to $7,500 per household. The first increase since 1986. This is pre-tax money. Contribute $7,500 toward daycare through this account, and it reduces your taxable income by $7,500, and it reduces the income subject to payroll tax too. That's a real double benefit most new parents don't take advantage of in year one. Third, the Child Independent Care Credit. This is separate from the FSA, and you can't use both on the same dollars, but on whichever daycare expenses aren't run through the FSA. You can claim a credit worth 20% to 50% of up to $3,000 in qualifying expenses for one child. For most middle-income families, that percentage lands around 35%. On the maximum $3,000 of eligible expenses, that's a $1,050 credit on top of everything else. Added up before touching daycare costs, $2,200 from the child tax credit, plus the FSA reducing taxable income by up to $7,500, plus up to roughly $1,050 more from the dependent care credit on remaining expenses. These stack. Almost no first-time parent uses all three in the same year. Alex and Sam had their daughter in March, New York City infant daycare, the kind near their neighborhood, $2,400 a month, $28,800 a year. They matched the Dependent Care FSA at $7,500 paid pre-tax. That leaves $21,300 of daycare paid with regular after-tax income. The FSA contribution reduces their household's taxable income by $7,500, which at their combined marginal rate saves them roughly $1,650 in federal tax, plus another $574 in payroll tax since FSA contributions dodge FICA too. Total FSA tax savings, about $2,224. On the remaining $21,300 paid outside the FSA, they can still claim the Child Independent Care Credit, but only on the first $3,000 of additional qualifying expenses. Beyond the FSA, at their income level, roughly 20%. That's a $600 credit. Plus the flat $2,200 child tax credit, unrelated to any of the daycare math at all. Total tax benefit from having their daughter, $2,224 plus $600, plus $2,200. That's $5,024 clawed back through the tax code alone. But the raw cost was $28,800. Even after every credit and the FSA, Alex and Sam are still out roughly $21,552 a year in net new childcare costs after tax benefits. Add the housing shift, a 2-bedroom instead of their 1-bedroom, up from $3,400 a month to $4,100. That's another $8,400 a year. Total new annual cost for Alex and Sam, after every tax benefit, roughly $29,952. Priya and Chris had their son in April. Because they're both remote, this changes their childcare math completely compared to Alex and Sam. Part-time daycare in their small Texas city, 3 days a week. Since one parent's remote schedule covers the other two. $700 a month, $8,400 a year. They contribute $7,500 to the Dependent Care FSA, more than covering the entire daycare cost, since it's already below the new limit. Wait, you can't contribute more to the FSA than your actual expenses. So they contribute exactly $8,400, slightly over the limit, meaning $7,500 goes in pre-tax, and the remaining $900 comes from after-tax income. The $7,500 FSA contribution saves them roughly $1,020 in federal tax at their bracket, plus $574 in payroll tax. Total FSA savings, $1,594. Since all their qualifying expenses already ran through the FSA, they don't have additional room for the separate dependent care credit on new dollars. The tax code prevents double dipping on the same expenses. Add the flat $2,200 child tax credit. Total tax benefit, $1,594 plus $2,200. That's $3,794. Raw cost was $8,400. After every benefit, Priya and Chris are out roughly $4,606 a year in net new childcare cost. Housing shift. Their apartment already had a small second bedroom, so no move required. Zero additional housing costs. Total new annual cost for Priya and Chris after every tax benefit, roughly $4,606. Jordan and Taylor had their son in June. Denver daycare. Full-time since both work hybrid with regular in-office days. $1,500 a month, $18,000 a year. They maxed the Dependent Care FSA at $7,500. That leaves $10,500 paid after tax. FSA savings. At their bracket, roughly $1,320 in federal tax, plus $574 in payroll tax. Total, $1,894. On the remaining $10,500 beyond the FSA, they can claim the credit on up to $3,000 of it, at their income level around 25%. That's a $750 credit, plus the flat $2,200 child tax credit. Total tax benefit, $1,894 plus $750 plus $2,200. That's $4,844. Raw cost was $18,000. After every benefit, Jordan and Taylor are out roughly $13,156 a year in net new childcare costs. Housing shift, a slightly larger place for the nursery, up from $2,000 a month to $2,300. That's $3,600 a year more. Total new annual cost for Jordan and Taylor, after every tax benefit, roughly $16,756. Recap the pre-baby household surpluses from the last video, Alex and Sam. $58,519. Priya and Chris, $67,127. Jordan and Taylor, $72,472. Now subtract each household's new net childcare and housing costs. Alex and Sam, $58,519 minus $29,952 leaves $28,567 a year. Priya and Chris, $67,127 minus $4,606 leaves $62,521 a year. Jordan and Taylor, $72,472 minus $16,756 leaves $55,716 a year. Look at what just happened to the order. Jordan and Taylor were the clear winners in the last two videos. Now Priya and Chris have pulled ahead by more than $6,800 a year. This is the twist nobody predicted. the household with the smallest salary and the smallest household income. Priya and Chris now keeps the most money of all three, purely because remote work turned their childcare into a part-time, low-cost, tax-optimized expense instead of a full-time necessity. Alex and Sam took the hardest hit by far. New York City's daycare prices, combined with the need for a bigger, more expensive apartment, erased more than half of what they had left over before the baby arrived. This single data point should reframe how you think about location and remote work entirely. The value of remote flexibility doesn't just show up in commute costs and rent. It shows up even bigger the moment childcare enters the picture. Recall the household thresholds from 2 videos ago. Roughly $174,000 invested to make geography irrelevant. Roughly $900,000 invested for full independence. Recalculate the years to each threshold using these new post-baby annual surpluses, still at 8%. Priya and Chris, now saving $62,521 a year. They reach $174,000 in about 2 years and 7 months. They reached $900,000 in about 10 years. Jordan and Taylor, now saving $55,716 a year. $174,000 in about 2 years and 10 months. $900,000 in about 10 years and 8 months. Alex and Sam, now saving $28,567 a year. $174,000 in about 4 years and 11 months. $900,000 in about 16 years and 2 months. Look at that last number. Alex and Sam's timeline to full independence just stretched from 10.5 years as a childless couple to over 16 years with 1 child. 5.5 years added by a single new family member in the most expensive city on this list. Priya and Chris barely moved. 10 years, almost identical to their pre-baby 10-year timeline. The part-time, remote-friendly, low-cost daycare arrangement absorbed almost the entire impact. This isn't an argument that having a child anywhere expensive is a mistake, and it's not a universal formula either. A few things this comparison doesn't capture. First, grandparent or family child care support. If either set of parents lives nearby and helps with care, some or all of these daycare numbers can shrink dramatically in any of these 3 cities. Second, employer-sponsored child care benefits. Some companies, especially larger ones in expensive cities like New York, offer on-site care or direct subsidies that can partially offset the exact disadvantage Alex and Sam are facing here. Third, this only modeled 1 child. A second child roughly doubles daycare costs in most cases, though the fixed tax credits and FSA limit don't scale linearly, which changes these ratios again. Fourth, school-age costs eventually replace daycare costs entirely, and public school is free regardless of city, meaning this entire childcare gap is temporary, concentrated in a child's pre-kindergarten years, not a permanent feature of any of these households' futures. Here's what this video actually revealed. It's not that expensive cities are bad for families. It's that expensive cities combined with jobs that require full-time in-person daycare compound in a way that's dramatically worse than either factor alone. Priya and Chris didn't win this round because Texas is cheap. They won because remote work let them turn a fixed, unavoidable, full-time cost into a flexible, partial one, the same lever that won them earlier videos in this series, showing up again in a completely different form. If this changed how you think about planning for a child around your job in your city, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm people want the real numbers on parenthood, not just generic advice to budget for a baby. Final numbers. Alex and Sam, $28,567 a year, 16 years to full independence. Priya and Chris, $62,521 a year, 10 years. Jordan and Taylor, $55,716 a year, 10 years and 8 months. 3 tax benefits every new parent should check in year 1. The $2,200 child tax credit, the $7,500 dependent Care FSA limit, and the separate child and dependent care credit on whatever expenses the FSA doesn't cover. And one bigger lesson underneath all of it. The flexibility to work remotely or hybrid isn't just a lifestyle preference. By this video, across 3 separate life events, job location, marriage, and now a child, it has been the single biggest financial lever in every household we've followed. Subscribe for more. Next video. What happens to all 3 households at retirement, and whether the family that led this entire series actually finishes first? This is Kevin. This is Prosperity Levels. I'll see you in the next one.